Welcome back to another edition of Relative Talk. I'm your host, John Laloja. My sister, Theresa Young, is our guest today. Theresa, how are you?
Hi.
It's been of a bit hiatus for Relative Talk. I've been busy with some personal matters, stuff, you know, you wouldn't understand. I was actually trapped in the inner circle of fault.
Near.
Near the inner circle of fault. Oh, that is for the millions of listeners out there who are Albert Brooks fans, that's from Defending Your Life. Um, so I asked Theresa to come on this podcast because Jon Stewart is back. He is kind of shaped my 20s as far as comedy and political view, and he is back hosting The Daily Show just on Mondays. It is on Comedy Central. Yes, just in time. It's on, for those of you who don't know, it airs, I think, at 10:30 and Central Time, and it's on Comedy Central, but you can also watch it on Paramount Plus. So I recorded it, and then it went over a half an hour, so it cut the last 10 minutes out, so then I had to just watch it on Paramount Plus. So DVRing it is pointless, so just watch it on Paramount Plus, or DVR the show after the Daily Show airs and just watch the first 10 minutes of it, because it will cut the last, because I didn't see the last 10 minutes. I had to go to Paramount Plus for it. Anyway.
But is that just because of the first episode, or are they always going to go that long?
I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a really good question. So we're gonna kind of break down, again, we're going to talk politics, but we're going to take the emotion out of it. We're going to talk about it as, did the show work? Was it funny? We're not gonna really have a conversation about politics, but it blends in with the show, obviously, and we're going to talk about what worked and what didn't. We're also going to talk, this will be strictly about Jon Stewart's return to The Daily Show, but this podcast, we're going to try to do it every Tuesday, and we'll be talking about Bill Maher, which airs on Friday, real time, and then we're also going to talk about The Daily Show. So let's get into it. I have thoughts, but I have told that I talk too much on this podcast by our mother. So I'm going to let you go first and give me your, it doesn't matter. She'll never listen. And give me your first impressions of the show and what you thought, and then I'll get into what I thought.
It was great. It was exactly what I would have hoped it would have been, which is like the old Daily Show. Like, sometimes you want something new to be different, or you want it to feel refreshed or updated, but I wanted it to be exactly how it used to be, and I thought it hit every note. He was spot on. They kept the formula. He had the right tone, the right energy. It was exactly what I hoped it would be. And that's a contrast
I completely
between
agree.
That and his Apple show.
Well, let's talk about that. So I thought he nailed it. I thought it was like riding a bike. He just snapped right back into it immediately. In the first 5 minutes, I watched it this morning because I go to bed at like 8 o'clock now because I'm old. But I watched it early this morning while everyone was sleeping with a cup of coffee, which is the preferred way I like to watch it. And I was taking notes on my phone. And I texted you. Well, you texted me first, and then I texted you back. I was watching it as you texted me, and I said, the first 5 minutes, he's got it. He's in. It's like riding a bike, clicked. It was excellent. He hit all the right notes. I thought he was really fair on both sides. He did. I thought he absolutely nailed it. And he tackled subjects in a very, a comedian, so if there's an opportunity for comedy, left or right, you're going to take shots. Biden is old and, not lucid all the time, to put it lightly, and he hammered him for it. And he should, you know what I mean? But he also hammered Trump. So I thought it was great. One of my favorite things was people ripping on Biden for having a poor memory. And then And then he goes, let's go to that. And then it showed the clip of Trump talking about, I have a great memory, but, and then it has a series of clips where he literally can't remember anything. And I thought that was so brilliant and smart and just like his old show. I think he said along the lines of a sign for early onset dementia is being deposed, as the entire Trump family in like a series of clips could not remember anything about their lives or anything that they did.
A lot of networks picked that segment up too. They played it on like
Well, it's all
several
over
morning shows.
It's all over social. It's everywhere over social. He killed it, millions of views. You can tell pretty quickly if something worked or not, like
Yeah.
on social media. It's so funny too. Like liberals are coming after him, like, oh, he's ripping Biden. You know what I mean? But he's so smart. Like that's what he should be doing. Bill Maher said it perfectly. He goes, perfect is not on the menu. These are the two candidates. This is who's running. So if you want to have a say in this election, you got to pick one of them. You know?
And at one point in the show, he said it's not on the voters to it's on the candidate to prove to the voters. The voters shouldn't have to make excuses or not bring things up in favor of their candidate. That's on the onus of that is on the candidate to make them to answer the concerns of the voters. The voters should bring up any concerns they have. And I think if Jon Stewart's getting it from both sides, it's probably an indication he's doing something right. He's probably being fair and balanced.
That's my thoughts exactly. I'm like, if liberals are attacking him, I'm like, he's doing it right. That's exactly what he should be doing. Because to not, I mean, obviously he ripped Trump, but to not acknowledge, like, if he came out and just ripped Fox News or Trump and didn't acknowledge at all that Biden is clearly losing it, he would lose all credibility. Tons. I thought one of my favorite jokes was when a couple things with Biden when he like, oh man, he crushed that speech and he's leaving and he goes, oh man, awesome, leave on a high note, and then he stops and he turns back. He goes, no, what are you doing? No, leave. He goes, this was a title of a one-man show for Biden's advisors. It would just be titled, no. He goes, it's not bad to acknowledge that Biden's lost a step, perhaps 3 or 4. I mean, he was so bad, but obviously, Trump isn't great. I made this analogy the other day, Alex. I think I told you. It's like, you have two choices. You only have two choices in this race, despite Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s political ad during the Super Bowl, which was very out of place, and he has Aaron Rodgers' vote, but I don't think that's gonna win it for him. But he
doesn't even have Rogan's vote.
Yeah, probably not.
He doesn't.
That's interesting because you would think he would be right up Rogan's.
And he had him on, and he likes him, but he's not voting for him.
I know, and I was talking to Alex about it too, and I said it's literally the equivalent of like you have two choices. Do you want the guy who occasionally forgets to turn the stove off before he goes to bed, like the oven, which is dangerous, or do you want the guy that says, you know what the oven could also be? A bomb. So I'd rather have the guy, personally, that occasionally forgets to turn the oven off, as opposed to like, let's just turn this into a bomb. I don't know. We'll see.
I really didn't think that that the Democrats were gonna choose Biden. I didn't think they'd choose Harris either. I actually kind of thought they were going to try to pivot to Newsom, but I mean, we're 9 months out
his
now?
appearance on Bill Maher, he's pretty impressive. He was very good.
But I mean, with 9 months out, I think, I mean, if they are gonna make a change, it has to be like in the next few weeks, literally.
Oh, it has to be now.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna make a change.
At this point, I don't think they're going to, and I really thought they were.
I never did. Because Trump is so good at one thing, and it's to win an election, you need to be really good at making it difficult for people to vote for your opponent, which he's actually pretty good at. He's good at attacking people. But Biden is such a sympathetic figure that it doesn't work. It just doesn't hit. It worked with Hillary because Hillary was not very likable by men and especially women. Women did not come out and vote for her at all, considering the numbers they expected. But Biden is a very sympathetic figure, and so when Trump rails on him, it doesn't hit the same way. Also, another way to win is making it easy for voters to vote for you, and Trump is god awful at that. He makes it so hard for people to vote for him. Republicans too, everybody. He just makes it so difficult for people to vote for him. But one of my favorite things about The Daily Show, and I kind of forgot about it, and he just snapped back in, is he was talking about how old these candidates are, and he goes, we've never seen this before. He goes, except for the previous, two candidates that was set by them 4 years ago. He goes, you know what? Meet me over at camera 3. He didn't say it, which I thought he would, but I forgot that bit. He goes, look at me. Look how time hath wrath my body. Or something along those lines. He goes, just look at me. He goes, I'm 20 years younger than these motherfuckers. He goes, they wish they were me. That was brilliant. It was so perfect. I thought he nailed it. And I liked it so much that I was like, why can't he do it every day? Why do I have to wait till Monday? And I totally get it. He has a family. He doesn't have to do this at all. I think he's doing it because I know he's probably afraid that Trump could win legitimately because Biden is such a flawed candidate. Obviously, Trump is too. The indictments, all that other stuff. He was like, but Democrats are going to need everything at their disposal to beat him because I think he'll probably win. Biden will win in a general, but it'll be razor thin.
Yeah, well, I think almost any two candidates now are going to make it razor thin. But I think he, coming back to the show, I felt the same way as when he left. It's just, it didn't even feel like a first show. It didn't feel...
Neither.
It didn't feel forced. It felt like there was no time lost.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, it contrasts so differently from his other show on Apple TV. Like
let's talk about what the difference was. Was it Apple not letting him do the show that he wanted to do, or was it Stewart's pivot to be? I mean, this is my interpretation. It felt like a very overly woke show, and he was doing content that he thought other people would like versus what he wanted to do. Separate from the interviews. The interviews were probably the best part about that show, but the panel interviews and the monologues up top, I think he was looking for clapter as opposed to laughter. And I think the Daily Show is just a better vehicle for laughter. And that, I think, is more effective than having people, what's up, Brian? Having people just like agree with you and clap, which I felt like was the Apple Plus show, which I didn't think was effective. Why did you think the Apple show wasn't effective, in your opinion?
Well, like I said, he's so talented. No matter what he does, he's gonna do a great job. He's just he's extremely talented. The problems I found with the Apple show, I don't get the impression at all that it was people not letting him do what he wanted to do. I think he went into that with full creative freedom. I think that's the only way he does projects now. He's at a point in his career where he's like,
Yeah.
just say, no, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to go somewhere
Right.
else. I think he probably had full freedom. I think the impression I always got from watching that show is that he was playing to an audience of his writer's room.
Yeah.
I didn't get the feeling that he was playing to like a general conversation like the Daily Show feels like. I feel like he had a group of writers that he was impressed with and that he felt were very different from the people he typically works with. And I agree with you. I think there was probably
There was a conscious effort to make. I mean, he talked about this too when he hired writers on the Daily Show. It was mostly white dudes that look like him, and he wanted to right a wrong. And so that writer's room was a lot of talented people. Some people I recognize from Second City who performed, so really talented people. It was a lot of people of color and a lot of women, which is a great thing. But it wasn't the Daily Show vibe. It was more, I felt it was more like I agree with you and clapter versus what's really funny.
Yeah, it was like I said, it didn't have one of the great things about the Daily Show is it feels so authentic. You feel like he's sitting at the table having a cup of coffee with you and he's just venting.
Yep.
And he's funny and he's right on, but it feels so natural. It's almost like a conversation.
But he's like off, but it's off the cuff. It feels like just stream of consciousness. Right. He's like, this
and
is
I know
like.
I know there's a lot behind the scenes. I know that there's a lot that goes into the writing and all of that. But for some reason on the Apple show, it felt scripted. It felt forced. It just, like I said, it felt like he was performing to like this small group of people he was kind of trying to gain clout with or impress. Yes. Rather than just like kind of generally talking the way it feels to me on the Daily Show. And I think that might be why it wasn't quite effective. Also, there was a level of anger sometimes with his guests. And I mean, there were times he went a little, and not that the issues weren't justified. I mean, I almost always agree with where he's coming from, but
me too. And it was interesting and I learned a lot.
Sure, right, and I always do. But going into it, like looking at a comedy show, you're like, ooh, this feels it was a little harsh sometimes. Again, not that it wasn't warranted. It's just like, am I watching a comedy show or what am I watching? I think that was just it was like, what's the vibe of this show?
Yes, and I think they never found their identity. And I think that was the biggest issue. Because I was like, oh, this is really heavy and dark and it's a dead audience. And when I watched The Daily Show, he's a comedian. So at the heart, he is a comedian and he thrives off a live, vibrant audience. And he's better with the Daily Show audience, a little bit younger. Although they showed the audience. There was quite a few older people, not as young.
They're young. They're younger than the Apple
younger
TV
audience,
show.
but people that are looking for comedy. It was a very different vibe. It was a very different audience. I could tell before he started talking, the audience. It was just different. And when he's behind the desk with the suit, like it just fit. It's like Seth Meyers when he started his new show. He tried to do monologues and it wasn't working. And he goes, and then I got behind the desk and I said the exact same thing and it worked. He goes, and it just. He goes, it's hard to explain, but it's an aesthetic and people, sometimes you can't explain it. Some things resonate with audiences and some things don't.
Well, his opening thing was he took that straight from The Daily Show. And it right. really filled a void when Jon Stewart left. And then he did his opening almost mimicking The Daily Show. And I liked it 100 times better. Half the time, I'll watch that show and just stop whenever we'll watch the first part and just stop whenever the guest comes.
Or I'll just watch a closer look.
Or right up until, up through the first guest. He took that right from The Daily Show, and that just works. There's something about that formula.
Yeah, I agree. So I thought the opening monologue, everything was great. And then at one point he acknowledged, he goes, I can't remember what he said.
He said, are you disappointed yet?
He said, are you disappointed yet? Yeah. I just love that because you're right. There was it felt like the Apple Plus show was very coveted, and that's not like the Daily Show is like, whatever. Like, let's just roll with it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and especially when they first started, that he used to make jokes about their budget all the time, or talk about like the audio. Like he used to
Yeah.
say, and then when he got more popular, he used to be like, "I'm not CNN. You shouldn't be getting your news here." It's like, "I'm
Right.
sorry, you have to," and then
Yeah. He goes, I'm sorry
it
you have to. He goes, also, I didn't
right,
do it out of altruism. Like, we were selling Budweiser. You
yeah,
know?
right,
Like,
yeah.
and just being honest and off the cuff and just real, and that format just works better. It's just it's a more you're laughing more, but it's more enjoyable to watch. And you can still tackle tough subjects, but you do it through the lens of comedy, which just makes it more entertaining and more palatable and just a better show.
Well, and then you look at like how people have transitioned off of the Daily Show. So obviously, Colbert Report was just everything that we needed,
It's
and
one
I
of my
still
favorite shows of all time. I mean, I don't watch a CBS show just because he can't do any of that stuff. But you go back and rewatch some of those Colbert Report episodes; they are absolutely brilliant. And him improvising with his guests; those are some of the best interviews I've ever seen. I mean, he's incredible.
and he's still obviously incredibly talented and a great comedian. The show, his CBS show, it just isn't kind of my vibe.
Me
Occasionally,
neither.
I'll see a clip or two from there, and he's just great, and I love him. But if you look at the departures from the people who started on the Daily Show, like him and John Oliver, they really went on to do very different things. And John Oliver was probably the closest to what Jon Stewart was trying to do with his Apple Plus show, because the John Oliver show is very different. It's a very different format, but it's wildly successful. It's definitely more woke. Um, but for some reason, for John Oliver, it works.
Yep.
But for Jon Stewart, and he wasn't trying to do the same thing, but for Jon Stewart, it didn't work. John
Right.
Oliver, he can be more woke. He can tackle those issues a little bit more aggressively, and he does more in-depth stories, and it is still funny and entertaining.
Isn't that fascinating why something works and why something doesn't? I read that, I talked to you, but I read that book by Rick Rubin, who's that famous music producer who produced like System of a Down, Jay-Z, bunch of Grammy winning artists. He has a bunch of Grammys. And he basically is just a music producer. And he talked about that too. He goes, you put your art out into the world, and he goes, people either like it or they don't, but you can never predict really. Like, that's why you have to make something for yourself. Like, you have to like it. Like, what the audience wants is the best thing they can get. So you shouldn't care if they like it. You should really care if you like it. And I could tell that Jon Stewart was enjoying himself so much
Oh,
more
yeah,
during this first Daily Show than he did the entire Apple series. You could just tell that he
yeah,
was enjoying himself more. And if you're having, as a comedian, if you're having more fun, the audience feeds off that. It's a very intimate thing. They can tell when you're being your authentic self,
right.
and it just worked. I mean, the first 5 minutes, I text you, I go, it literally looks, it feels like he hasn't left,
Yeah, it did.
and
It really
and
did.
not as cynical as the Apple Plus show. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
Which is that's what people, if you're good, the news is heavy enough.
right.
We don't need more heaviness. And I think that's why it
And that's
works.
why
So
people that's why they liked it in the first place. It was balanced. You'd actually hear about what's going on,
yeah,
but it was funny, palatable, and honestly, often a more objective spin
yes,
than you would get from any of like the silos of the networks.
100%. I completely agree. Yep. So we agree that was the monologue. Everything was spot on. He nailed it. The correspondence, the best fucking news team. So I've watched I haven't well, I mean, honestly, since he left, I have not really watched The Daily Show a ton. Just be transparent about that. So I'm a little.
Did give it a chance, but I never.
I gave it a chance, but I couldn't. We couldn't do it. But I thought the bit was really good with Desi and Michael Costa in the diner.
That whole part was spot on too.
It
was just like they used to be.
They nailed it. So the opening monologue, check. Correspondence, best fucking news team, check. Trump voters at the counter sitting on their coats while Biden voters are in the booth. Brilliant. Absolutely perfect.
Liberal elites with the backs on their chairs.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Trump voters sitting at the counter, like sitting on their coats. I thought that was perfect. Desi breaking while Ronnie Chang was eating was absolutely fucking perfect. And you just off the cuff, like was just shoving food in his mouth. And the Taylor Swift thing, that was perfect too. But like her breaking was also just phenomenal. And all of them are brilliant improvisers. So that
the few times I've seen them on the show, I've always thought they were good. I didn't always think the writing for them was there.
Yes.
But I've always thought they were good.
They're all talented. Absolutely. Yeah. Very talented. And then you end with a surprise cut. So great cut right back to the desk. And you just have Jordan Klepper there, who really people probably think like he probably should be the host, you know? And he's kind of...
he should be the host.
And he's kind of expecting it. And he's like, like he's just shitting on him for coming back. Like... Yeah. Why are you even here? And then he's like, well, it's only a month.
That's
he's like,
totally joking either.
No, it's not. And that's why it's funny.
It comes across a little bit like...
Because everything that's funny, there is a hint of truth in it. Unless something's just absolutely stupid and slapstick, which is also funny. But for The Daily Show, if you're doing satire, there's a fundamental truth in the joke. And he was probably... If real talk, like truth serum, is it polyjuice? What's the thing? Polyjuice potion? No. What's the thing that what's the drop that Snape gives you that makes you tell your deepest dark? Veriserum. Fuck. Polyjuice potion is what Mad-Eye Moody, or actually Barty Crouch Jr. takes to turn into Mad-Eye Moody in the Goblet of Fire, right?
Pretty good for someone who never read the books, John.
I rewatch the movies a lot. Therefore, you don't need to read. I'm very smart. I just want to throw that out there. Speaking of that, I got a quick ad read. If you're smart and you enjoy reading, I actually wrote a book. It's called Shitty Jobs, The Art to Surviving the Recession. People say there's going to be one. If that helps book sales, so be it. You can get it at Amazon. Basically, go to my website, johnloja.com. All right, that's the end of our reads. But yeah, so the Klepper was perfect because if you gave him Veritaserum, he wanted it. And he should have, like, everybody thought he would be the host of The Daily Show. And so it was just perfect. They didn't need to say it. You could feel the underlying tension, and it was perfect. And it was a fun flip to be like, oh, you're only doing this Mondays? Great. Like, I get to host it the rest of the week. Yes, absolutely great. So that was spot on and absolutely perfect. Here's where I thought, here's my criticism of the show, was the interview. So it was the editor.
My recording cut off, so I saw like 2 seconds of it, so I didn't even see it.
You got to get Paramount Plus, or just always record the show after it.
I guess so. Yeah.
It was the interview with the editor-in-chief of The Economist, Zanny Minton Beddoes. I found her boring. It felt like a plug for The Economist. Like if you watch it, it will feel like that. So I didn't have a lot of notes on it. I didn't think it was interesting or fun. But he had a great moment of zen with Trump at the end. If you haven't seen it, I won't. I can't. It was just him talking like fucking nonsense. Yeah. I mean, like, I could tell you the joke, but it doesn't really matter. It's like, it's just a clip of Trump talking. Like, enough said, you know, insanity ensues. You know what I mean? So I mean, that's a brilliant thing of that. It's like, that clip, you could have like that. I'm sure they had thousands of clips just like that. So
yeah, they could have just picked it random.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah. So that basically recaps the show. Definitely a success. We will be back. We're going to try to do this every Tuesday. And the next time we'll dedicate the segment to Bill Maher's show, Real Time, and then Jon Stewart's second show.
When does John Oliver come back on?
He's back.
No.
He's been back, I think.
No.
Right?
No.
He takes a ton of time off.
I know.
Well, they've won like a billion Emmys, so they can pretty much do whatever they want. So does
they're
Bill
not
Maher.
back. Yeah.
They're not?
No, they're not back yet. I'll keep an eye out.
Okay, keep an eye out. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking with you next Tuesday.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Give Peanut a kiss. I miss him.
I will give Theo a kiss for you.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.